A shocking discovery along a highway in rural Arkansas that could bring the disappearance of little Maleah Davis to a close. Police say human remains were found inside a bag.
The bag disintegrated, and there's what we believe to be remains, bones, things like that down there.
The remains were taken to Houston on a flight early this morning. City officials will conduct an autopsy in hopes of identifying that 4-year-old girl.
We can't confirm whether the remains found today are the remains of Maleah Davis, but certainly we are trying to draw those conclusions.
The focus of the search moved to Arkansas after the suspect in her disappearance allegedly confessed to dumping her body there nearly a month after Maleah was reported missing in Texas. Earlier Friday, suspect Darian Vence talked to an activist who visited him in jail.
What happened to Maleah was an accident. He says it was an accident. And he confessed to me where he dumped her body.
Vence was caring for Maleah while her mother was out of town. Now, he initially told police 3 men knocked him unconscious and abducted Maleah on May 4th. But surveillance footage shows she never left the apartment, and he was arrested as a suspect.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the case with the 4-year-old Maleah Davis, who was found missing in Houston, Texas. We're going to be talking about the mother, Brittany Bowens, the stepfather, which was the mother's fiance, Darian Vence, and the spokesperson for the mother, which was Quanell X. This case has been really just it's an emotional case because it's dealing with a young child. Like I said, Maleah Davis was 4 years old. She was reported missing by the stepfather. Apparently the mother's story was she left out of town to attend her father's funeral in Massachusetts, and she left her daughter and her young son in the care of Darian Vence while she was away. And during that time, he basically said that he was driving, and his story was that he had trouble with the car and he pulled over to change the tire, and the girl was abducted by 3 males, but yet they left the son in his care. So I'm not going to really get too much into the story of what the stepfather told, because now we know that was false. It was just a made-up story that he put out there to cover up what really happened to this little girl. One thing to note with this case was that the stepfather had bruises on his forehead and some scratches, they were saying, on his body. So I thought that was really strange from the beginning, to have bruises all over your body like that. Is something just really didn't seem right about his story. And then they were saying that somebody dropped the fiance and the son off at the hospital between 10 and 11 p.m. on May 4th. And so they're still trying to figure out who dropped them off at the hospital. So that part, still seems strange. The daycare was saying that Maleah hadn't been seen since April 26th, and the son was last seen at the daycare on May 3rd. So nobody really looked into, from the daycare, looked into why the child hadn't been, dropped off at the daycare since April 26th. So it seemed as though no one checked on this child for an extended period of time. And the neighbor's security footage from where the mother lived was saying that they caught the stepfather carrying a garbage bag and bottles of bleach, well, he was caught on camera carrying the bottles of bleach into the house, and then he was caught carrying the garbage bag and I guess bleach bottles from the house in a laundry basket. So all of this stuff just really seemed really strange from the beginning. And there's so much stuff people have dug up about the mother's past that just really has no explanation. Like, for example, she had some cases with the Child Protective Custody back in 2018. The child was taken to the hospital because she was suffering from seizures from a head injury, and the mother didn't take the child immediately to the hospital. It was only until the grandmother, basically urged the mother to take her is when the mother took her. And what the mother claimed was that the child fell off of a chair, but when the child was at the hospital, the story didn't align with what the injuries were on the child. But they took the child out of the house. They took Maleah out of the house for a while, but the judge ended up returning her back to the mother several months later. So, nobody was arrested. No further information that came out about, what investigation was done and what they found with the investigation. Was there any routine checkups? Was the child being visited while she was in the home with the parents? Did they check up on the child? Once they released the child back into the mother's care, what happened after that? There's nothing that has been stated. And I think sometimes when the courts deal with a young child, they probably conceal those records, but I'm not really too sure about that. But I think all of those are things that need to be looked at, because it really speaks to how the mother was caring for these children. There was talk about how she didn't have her other children in her care, that the children was spread out amongst the family members. But it says a lot when a mother's children are not with her. So I'm going to revisit that topic in a minute, but I want to get back to this case on Maleah, because it's a really sad, and devastating situation. This child was 4 years old and could not care for herself. She had to rely on her mother and her biological father to care for her. And there's some stuff I want to look into with the biological father, because I think people were saying that he had some cases against him as well, pertaining to child protective custody. I guess there was something that happened with the child while she was in his custody. So I really want to look into that before I go and state that to be facts. I just want to make sure that the information that I got is correct, and so I'll bring that out a little bit later. I'm sure you guys can find that information too online. But so they went in and, they were looking for Maleah Davis, in the surrounding Houston area, and they really couldn't find any leads with that. And so, there was so much talk about the mother having an argument with the stepfather, her fiance, prior to Maleah's disappearance. They were saying that the mother had suspected the fiance of abusing Maleah and possibly molesting the child, but the mother never reported the abuse. And I think that's one red flag that we can really dive into. If you're suspecting that your child is being abused or your child is being molested, why didn't you report it? Why didn't you try to do anything to prevent it? And why did you leave this child in this man's care while you were not there? You left this child unattended with someone that you suspected of molesting her or abusing her. And I know that she later on came out with a live basically saying, that was information that Quanell X made up, and there was no proof to those stories, and that she didn't say that out of her own mouth. So my question is, where did this story come from? You know, Quinell X was her spokesperson, and now she's saying she fired him, and he's saying he removed himself from the case because he believed that there was some suspicious activity involving the mother's behavior, you know, her lack of emotion throughout the time that he was around her. And I think that that does speak a lot, because a lot of people have noticed that. So, you know, I'm willing to believe him a little bit more on that there was probably some things that he had a concern for while he was around her. Maybe there was conversations that he had with her, and she probably, you know, told him some information that wasn't put out to anybody else. And so he probably got all that information and just felt something wasn't right. So, I know that they were saying that investigators went to the house, and they did, they were looking around the house, and they took the, I forgot what that chemical's called. It's like the solution that you spray around the house when you're looking for blood. And they did find, you know, particles of blood, or, you know, human tissue in the house, is what they were saying. And so they ended up arresting the fiance based on tampering with a human corpse, basically tampering with evidence. And they set his bond to $1 million, but it was reduced to $45,000. So here's the thing that somebody had brought up, was that the mother and some of her friends had created a page on, I believe it was Facebook, and it was a private page. And in order for you to get on the page, you had to pay a certain fee. And it was designed, from what they're saying, was to raise money from those signing up to get access to the page. The fee that was charged was for them to pay anyone who had information leading to the rescue of this child, or her whereabouts. But somebody brought up the fact of, could this money had been raised for the fiance's bond? And I think that that was something, you know, it's speculation, but it's something that one can look at to say it's a possibility. It's a very big possibility. And so, you know, it's just a lot of stuff with this case that it was just not right from the beginning. But so I think we really do need to look at this mother. I really do think that there's more to her situation than what is out there right now. But they have recently charged, well, I'm not sure if they charged the fiance with murder now that because recently Quinell X came out and did a press conference basically stating that he received access to the jail where Darion Vince was being held, and he had a conversation with him, and in that conversation Darion admitted to the fact that the child was dead, and his explanation was that the child died in an accident, and that he disposed of the body in Arkansas along a road between Texas and Arkansas. And so the rescue teams went out looking and searching the sides of the road in Arkansas looking for this body, and they did recover it, but they're currently doing tests to make sure that it's Maleah's body. So I'm assuming once they can prove that this is, whether or not this is Maleah's body, then they will up the charge to murder for the fiance. I'm not sure why they're saying stepfather, because she wasn't actually married to this man. From my understanding, he was just her fiance. But so here's my thing that I want to get into. The mother seems very suspicious. She seems suspicious from day one. And I'm willing to bet that she has more information on what happened. I think it was really awkward the fact that she left out of town the way she did, and she left this child in this man's care, and this wasn't even her biological father. Brittany's mother, her own mother, was there in town. Why didn't you leave the child with the mother? If you had suspicions of this man dealing with your child, there was a story that came out that he was supposed to have dropped the child off at daycare, but he didn't drop her off. The mother was claiming that he came back with the child, but she didn't see the child before she left out to go to the airport. So if you had suspicions of this man, why didn't you leave this child with her grandmother? Why didn't you leave the child with an aunt? With a family member, with a cousin, with someone that you trusted, rather than leaving this child with your fiance. Something doesn't seem right about her story. And I'm willing to bet that they're probably going to find more information that's going to tie her to the disappearance and possible murder of this child. I find her behavior to be weird. If a mother really was concerned about this child's well-being, she is gonna do whatever it takes to get this child back. She's gonna be out there with search teams. She's gonna be out there herself looking for this child. She's gonna be doing interviews, pleading for the safe return of her child. This woman wouldn't even talk during a recent interview that she did. It was her and Quanell X doing an interview, and I forgot who the host was, but she really didn't even speak during that interview. The host would ask questions, and Quanell X was answering them. That was the part that I found very suspicious as to why couldn't this mother speak on her own. I can understand if she had a legal team and her attorney was saying for her not to speak on certain topics or certain things because of, legal reasons. But she was allowing a spokesperson to answer questions on her behalf, and that's what I thought was very weird. There's something not right about that. And her lack of emotion. I hadn't seen this woman cry. I haven't seen this woman cry at all throughout this whole time that I've been following this case. Her emotion just doesn't seem right with a mother that a child is missing and possibly could be dead. Her emotion is not there. And then when she did that interview, I'm going to look up that interview and I'm going to try to link it below in the description. But when she did that interview, there was a time in that interview where the host had asked a question to the mother and was basically asking her, what did she remember most or love about Maleah? And she used the past tense when she was referring to her, to the child. She used a form of past tense. She said was. She was this. Well, why would you use that past tense for a child who is still alive, who could possibly be still alive? And this was before, the fiance had said the child was dead. They were still actively looking for this child during this time. So why would you use a past tense when referring to this child? That part did not make sense. And I automatically clued into that when I heard it. So I do think that this mother knows more than what she's saying. I honestly believe that child, something happened to that child at that home. And I believe that if you go back and you look at the case with the Child Protective Services, they were saying that this mother had cases against her when it came to the children that was in her care. So I went back and started thinking, could this mother really have been an abusive and neglectful mother to her children, and maybe the fiance is the one trying to clean up the mess. You know, let's really be honest. You have some mothers out there that are, they are very neglectful. They're abusive to their children. I have seen it in person. I have known some people to be that way with their children. And, they'll hit the child. They'll yell at the child. I have seen those things. I have heard of stories of people who have, been very abusive to their children. And this man could possibly be somebody who was just there to clean up this woman's mess. And maybe he's just taking the fall for something that maybe she did. And he probably went to dispose of the body to try to help cover up the evidence. And maybe he was just really in love with her, that he would be willing to take the case for her. All of those things we need to look at. Pull up this mother's background. Pull up this fiance's background. It could be that they both was in it together. Who knows? We don't even know any of what really happened. All the stuff that I'm saying is just speculation, but there are red flags when it comes to this mother's relationship to her children. Why are her children not in her custody? That says a lot. If this man came into the relationship and he was abusive to these children, the children would have still been with the mother. Why is the children taken from the mother? I think there's something more to this mother that is just not showing, right off the bat. I think there's something wrong, seriously wrong with this mother's story. And I think these are things that we need to look at. And I think the bigger topic in our community that we need to look at is, are some women not capable of taking care of children in the way that they should be taken care of? Now, I'm not trying to say that this is, an issue that only happens in the Black community, because we all know that would be false. That is not true. This happens throughout all communities, throughout all races. But is this an issue that the Black community needs to look at? Some women are just not capable of raising children. And I honestly believe that if a woman is charged or is to be proven that this woman has had several incidents with a child, and a child is removed from her custody, and she is proven to be an unfit mother or proven to be a danger to a child, I believe that, the government should force a female sterilization. This woman should not be allowed to have children going forward. That's just in my opinion. I see women, they're constantly having children back to back, and some of these women, I'm not speaking for the mothers that are great mothers. I'm speaking only for the mothers that have proven to be unfit. They are having children back to back to back to back. And a lot of them women are having children just to get money from the state. They go on welfare and they look for the state to take care of the children. And their only benefit is the money. Because a lot of these women are not present with their children. They're not present in their children's life. The child is just there, and it's like they don't show these kids any love. So that's why I say that women like that should not be allowed to have children. Period. If you have been proven to be an unfit parent, if you have been proven to be a danger to a child, you should not be allowed to have a baby. You shouldn't. And you shouldn't be allowed to keep the child that's currently in your custody. And I think they need to look at what happened with that case, with Maleah being taken from child protective custody. What happened? Where's the investigation? What came out in the investigation that they did? Did they drop the ball by returning this child back to the mother when there was obvious signs of something being wrong there? So I think there's a lot of things that we need to look at. You know, I'm saddened by this story. You know, this is a child, a 4-year-old child, and I'm haunted by the thought of what this child may have went through while staying at this home with these individuals, and this child could not speak up for herself. They were saying that that the grandmother had seen some things that was wrong with Brittany taking care of Maleah, and I guess I don't know if there was abuse that the mother had seen or some treatment that the grandmother had seen between Maleah and Brittany, and they were saying that the grandmother had jumped on Brittany about it. I guess she got in her behind about it because she didn't agree with it. So my question is, was there family members that were around that saw some things that they can speak on? I know that there was a cousin that came out and was talking about, you know, things that was happening with the children in the mother's care. So there's more to the story, and I think that if we do enough digging, things will really actually come out about this mom. You know, there's red flags, and I'm pretty sure that we all see them. There's something about this mother story that don't make sense. And so I'm going to continue to watch this case very closely and, you know, see what they find from here on out. But, you know, I just say if this child is dead, I would just say, you know, rest in peace, Maleah. You know, I think that we all need to start taking cases like this seriously, especially when, you know, there is cases of children being neglected or something wrong with the child. I think that if more was done when the first signs when they saw the first signs of neglect or abuse, this child might still be alive. So that's just, you know, where I'm coming from. That's just my thoughts on this case. You know, you guys tell me what your thoughts are. You know, what do you think? Do you think the mother has something to do with it? Do you think she's innocent? You know, do you think that the fiance was in on this alone? Do you think that he's just taking the fall for something that the mother has done? You know, what are your thoughts on this case? I think, you know, I think the internet will probably be the one to really bring out more information. So I'm going to sit back and watch the rest of what's happening. You know, what do they uncover as far as the body that was found, you know, and then I'll come back with, you know, more information on it. All right, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in to my channel. I will see you guys soon.